I'm going to show you how to add a zippered pocket to any bag. Now it's perfect if you've got a pattern that doesn't have a zippered pocket but you'd really like to add one. Well, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Let me show you how. So the first thing we're going to do is cut a piece of fabric that you'd like to be your pocket, and it needs to be folded in half. So my pocket's actually going to be quite long and slim because I just wanted it to fit in a phone perfectly. We're going to lose an inch on either side and about 1.25 inches down, and then I think that's going to be just right to fit a phone in. But just work out whatever size you'd like to be your pocket, and then we'll get started. Just so you know, mine measures 12 inches by 11 inches, and I'm using this gorgeous fabric called Joyful June by Sarah Hart's for Figo Fabrics. So once you've decided on your pocket side, let's flip it over, and on the wrong side of the fabric we're going to draw some lines. I'm just going to turn it this side just so it's a little bit easier for me to draw the lines. So on the top edge, but I have turned it to the side, I'm going to draw 1 inch down from that top edge. So finding the 1 inch mark on my ruler, lining it up on that edge, I'm just going to draw a line straight along the whole length of it, and then I'm going to come down 1/2 inch and draw another line, and I'm going to line up that 1/2 inch mark on the line that I just drew, and it should also be 1.5 inches from this top edge here. Then what we're going to do is just mark 1/2 inch in on both of the sides here. So just lining up the line on your ruler on that edge on both sides. Now what we're going to do is take the fabric that we'd like to add our pocket to, and this is the front of my tote bag that I'm making, and we're going to work out exactly where to place it. So the first thing I'm going to do is fold it in half, line up these edges here, and just give it a finger press so I know the center, where the center is. Then I'm going to open that up. Then I'm going to take the piece that we've drawn our lines on, and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to fold it in half, finger press it, and now I can see where the center is. You could also just get a washable marker and draw it if you're more comfortable doing that. Then I'm just going to take a ruler, and I want to measure 2 inches down from the top. So I'm lining up the 2 inch mark on the top of my fabric, and then I'm just going to bring my pocket down a little bit so it's lined up on the edge of the fabric, because then I know it is 2 inches. Now this is again just personal preference. You might like your pocket to be higher or lower, just depending on your bag and where you're adding your pocket. So that looks good, and I can see my finger press line is still lining up. Once I'm happy, I'm just going to pop some pins in to keep it all in place, and I'm just being careful not to place them too close to those lines because we're going to sew along them now. Okay, now what we're going to do is just sew along this square here. We're not worrying about the lines on either side where we measured in our 1/2 inch. So I'm starting just in the middle of my rectangle. I'm going to try and sew right on that blue line the best I can. I'm stitching at stitch length 2, and I'm using wonderful confetti thread. When I get up to the corners, I'm just going to lower my stitch length right down to like just almost 0, just so that I'm not going to skip stitches when I try and turn, because sometimes you get those skip stitches, and I want a really nice perfect rectangle for this project. I'm going to lift my foot up and pivot, put my foot back down, and then carry on. I'll put my stitch length back up to 2, and I'll do that on all my corners. By doing that, I'm just going to get really nice sharp corners. I'm just coming up to where I started. I'm just going to grab that thread and hold on to it because I don't want to accidentally turn into a big bird's nest. And I'm going to come straight past over where I started, and then I'll do a back stitch. Cut my thread, and then I'll remove my pins. I'm just going to trim that loose thread because it's going to annoy me. And now what we're going to do is just rule a couple more lines. So what I want to do is I want to rule a line right in the middle of our 2 sew-on lines. So it's about 1/4 of an inch from the stitches we just sewed. So I'm just going to draw a line just like that. Can you see that? Then what we're going to do is just measure 1/2 inch in from each side. So I'm just going to do a dot. And 1/2 inch in from that edge, I'm going to do a dot. Now what we're going to do is with these dots, we're going to connect it down to this bottom corner on all 4 corners. And I'll do the same on this side. Okay, now we're going to cut along the lines we just drew. So we want to cut along this line we've drawn, and it's a little bit hard to get started. So what I like to use is my quick unpick, or what is the American word for it? I can never remember when I'm recording. Seam ripper. So I'm going to take my seam ripper and just poke it through both the layers and just rip it a little bit. And now that gives me a nice starting point to cut with my scissors. So I'm just going to really carefully cut along that line, and I'm going through both layers. And now I'm going to cut all the way down to the very edge, and I'm just going as close as I possibly can to the stitches without cutting them. And then where we draw the lines down to the corners, I'm also going to cut there too. Now it pays to use really nice sharp scissors to get a really nice close cut to those stitches. I'm just going to spin it around and do the same on this side. Okay, now the fun part. We're going to turn the pocket right sides out. So we're going to pop it through the hole we just made and flip it over this way. Can be a little bit fiddly. And now we're going to give it a press. So now we want to press it so it's sitting really nicely, and we want to roll it out so we don't have any creases in here. But if anything, I would rather the pocket be showing on this wrong side of the fabric rather than coming through onto the front, which will be my bag. So I'm just going to really carefully press it so it's sitting exactly how I would like it. And it's with these details that you'll really get a nice finish. This is not where I would rush. This is where I like to take my time. Now it can be a little bit fiddly, and I'm just going to press until I'm happy. And then what we can do is we can just flip it over to the front and check we're happy with how that's looking on the front. And I think that's looking really, really nice. What do you think? Let's give it a press on the front too. Okay, now let's move on to the next step. So now we need to take our zipper, and I like to use these continuous zippers that you buy by the yard, and then you just cut them to whatever size you like. But you can just use a regular zipper. Just make sure it's sort of 1 inch to 1.5 inches larger on both sides of where our opening ends, because we don't want any of the little stoppers or anything in our zip, because we don't need to. We're going to cut that all off. So once we're happy we've got the right size zipper, what I'm actually going to do is use my special Annie's double-sided tape, and we're just going to add some tape here and then tape our zipper on, and that's going to make it way easier to sew, or if you prefer, you can always pin. So this is the tape here. I'm just going to open it up, and then on the back here, I'm just going to place it right next to the edge of my opening on both sides. And then I just break it like that. And then I'm just going to press it down so it's nice and secure. Then I'm going to peel it off. So I'm going to peel the backing off. So then I've got the double-sided tape attached to my fabric. Oh, it's being a little bit fiddly for me there. So then what I'm going to do is just take my zipper, make sure I've got about the same amount of hangover on both sides, and I'm just going to pop it down the best I can in the center. I'm not going to press it down too firmly because we just want to check it on the other side that it's all lined up really nicely, but that way I just know it's in the right place. We just might need to tidy up the placement. So I'm just going to flip it over, and you can see on this end it's looking perfect. But on this end, it's really wonky. So I'm just going to lift it up. And I'm just going to play with it until I'm really happy with how everything's sitting. And we want to remember that this opening was meant to be about 1/2 inch. So let's make sure we've got nice straight lines, and it is sitting at about that 1/2 inch, because it would be very easy to stretch the opening out and have it sitting all uneven. Now, there might be a better way of working out this placement, but this seems to work well for me. So once we're happy with how the zip is sitting, now you could also just pop in a few pins if you're worried that it's not secure enough, but it is actually fine. And of course, you could have just used pins anyway if that's your preference, or you don't have any of the double-sided tape. Now what we're going to do is just sew around the edge of our opening here. With about a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, I'm going to use my fancy zipper foot. You can use whatever foot you find the most easiest for you to get that nice 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm just starting over in this corner because I think that's the most discreet place to start. I'm going to stitch with a stitch length 2.5, and then when I get to the corners, I'm going to come right down to 0 just to get really nice sharp points. And I'm, again, once I said, using that 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, or just use your zipper foot or whatever you prefer. When I come up to my zipper, if it's in the way, I'm just going to make sure my needle's down, lift my foot up and just move it to the back, and then carry on. Coming back to where I started, just holding on to that thread, coming right past where I started, and then doing a back stitch, and then cutting my thread. And there we go. Let's take a closer look. So I'm just going to cut that loose thread, and then I will just give it a press so that it's sitting really nicely. Just pressing all the way around the zipper, and I'm really happy with that. What do you think? Now what we do is we're going to just flip it over. We're going to trim off the excess of our zipper. I'm just going to do it by eye, making sure I don't accidentally cut my bag here. Just like that on both sides. Then what we're going to do is fold our pocket up so the right sides are together, and we're going to sew along these 3 sides. So once the edges are lined up all nicely, I'm going to pop a few pins in. So we just want to make sure all the edges are lined up nicely, and we just want to make sure that we're pinning the pocket, not our main fabric for our bag. Okay, now what we're going to do is sew along that outer edge there with about a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and that will finish off our pocket. So I've got my 1/4 inch foot on. I'm stitching at stitch length 2 again, and what I'm doing is I'm folding down the fabric from my main bag right out of the way so I'm not accidentally sewing it into my pocket, because trust me, it's very easy to end up in a right royal pickle, and we don't want that. So I'm just going to start stitching a few stitches, and then I'll do a back stitch. And now I'll go all the way around. removing my pins as I need to. Coming right up to our fold, doing a back stitch. Cutting our thread, and now let's take a look at our finished pocket. So that's the back of the pocket, and then if we flip it over to the front, oh, there's the front of our pocket, and then if we open it up, yay, we've got cute little strawberries inside. And then let me do a phone test. Okay, perfect. Yay, I'm so happy with that. Now you could make this pocket to go on anything you've got that you'd like to add a pocket to. And don't forget, you can make it any size. I hope you just have fun with this. And if you'd like to join me on making this cute little summer tote bag, I'll put the link down below for you. And now you know how to add a zipper pocket if you'd like to. So I've finished my little tote bag and I'm so happy with how it turned out, especially my little pocket there. If you'd like to make one of these bags, I'll put the link for the video above. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.